When I slipped on the stairs and broke my arm, my family thought I had passed out. Lying on the floor, I heard my wife whisper, "This is our chance. He's a liability now. We'll say he fell down drunk and things will speed up." My daughter backed her up, "We'll be free at last." I kept silent, gritting my teeth. But when they returned, there was an unexpected twist waiting for them. If you had asked me a year ago, I would have said Marissa and I were doing fine. Not perfect, sure, no marriages, but solid enough. 14 years together, a daughter we both adored, a home we built side by side. Or so I thought. Looking back now, the signs were obvious. Marissa had become more distant, glued to her phone with that slight tilt of the screen whenever I walked by. Emma, who used to greet me at the door with hugs and stories about her day, had grown cold, barely acknowledging me at all. I told myself it was just teenage moods and the stress of college life. And Marissa? Maybe just tired. I was tired too, working 60-hour weeks to keep us comfortable, to pay for Emma's tuition, her dance lessons, the endless list of little luxuries that made their lives easier. I trusted them. God, what a fool I was. It all came crashing down one ordinary Tuesday morning. I was half asleep, stumbling down the stairs in search of coffee when my foot caught the same loose patch of carpet I'd been asking Marissa to fix for months. I lurched forward, tried to grab the railing, missed, and went crashing down the steps. Pain exploded through my body the moment I hit the bottom. My arm twisted unnaturally beneath me with a sickening crunch, and my head slammed against the wall so hard I saw stars. For a moment, I couldn't even scream. I just lay there gasping, a horrible gurgling sound coming from my throat. Through the haze, I heard Marissa's footsteps pounding down the stairs. "Alex! Oh my God, Alex!" Her voice sounded panicked, but something about it, something felt wrong. Too sharp. Too forced. I tried to speak, to tell her I was awake, but my body wouldn't respond. My mind was screaming, but all I could do was lay there, blinking up at her, helpless. Emma's voice joined hers a moment later. "What happened?" She didn't sound scared. Just curious, like she was asking about the weather. "He fell," Marissa said, crouching beside me. "I think he's out cold." And that's when my world cracked open. I wasn't unconscious. I was in agony, dazed and barely able to move, but I heard every word. And they didn't know. Marissa leaned closer to Emma, lowering her voice to a whisper. "This might be our chance," she said. "He's useless now. If we say he was drunk, we can speed things up." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Speed up what?" Emma knelt next to me. "Finally," she whispered. "We'll be free." "Free? From what? From me? The man who worked himself to the bone so she could dance and study and dream? The man who never missed a recital, who sat through endless college tours, who pulled overtime shifts just so she wouldn't have to worry about a thing. I wanted to shout, to demand an explanation, but some primal instinct told me to stay still. To listen. To survive. "How long will it take?" Emma asked. 2 months, maybe 3, Marissa replied. "Depends if he fights it. If we can prove he's unstable or drinking too much." She let the sentence hang in the air. I barely drank. A beer during a football game, maybe, but they were planning to paint me as an alcoholic, to rip apart my life and my reputation. Emma asked about the money next. "Did you move it like we planned?" "Most of it," Marissa answered. "There's still about 20 grand in the joint account. I'll transfer it once I set up the new one. He never checks the bank statements anyway." They weren't just abandoning me. They were robbing me. Lying there, pain radiating through my broken body, I listened as they calmly discussed how to dismantle everything I'd spent years building for them. They spoke about the house, the savings, the car, even the furniture. They had a whole new life mapped out, one that didn't include me. "Should we call an ambulance?" Emma asked. Marissa hesitated. "It'll look suspicious if we don't," she said. "Grab the whiskey bottle from the cabinet. Spill some on him." I felt cold liquid splash over my chest. The smell of cheap whiskey filled the air. They were staging the scene. They wanted it to look like I had fallen drunk. When the paramedics arrived, Marissa was back in full performance mode, teary-eyed, trembling, clinging to my hand like the devoted wife she wasn't. "He's been under so much stress," she told them. "Sometimes he drinks in the mornings." I've been so worried. If I hadn't been so hurt, so furious, I might have laughed at how convincing she sounded. They loaded me into the ambulance. Marissa rode along, stroking my hand, whispering assurances I knew were lies. I stayed silent, biting down my rage. At the hospital, X-rays confirmed what I already knew: fractured arm, mild concussion. When the doctor asked about the smell of alcohol, I finally spoke. "I wasn't drinking," I said. "I must have spilled something when I fell." Marissa's face tightened for a split second before she smiled sweetly and chimed in, "You were definitely drinking, honey. You just don't remember. It happens sometimes." She turned to the doctor, her voice dripping concern. He's been struggling lately. Forgetfulness, mood swings. I'm really worried. The doctor gave her a cautious look but didn't push the issue. I was discharged with my arm in a cast, a prescription for pain meds, and strict instructions to rest. On the ride home, Marissa kept probing, asking if I remembered anything about the fall. I played dumb. Just tripped, I said. Don't remember much after that. She sighed in obvious relief. That's normal, she said. Concussions mess with your memory. How convenient for her. That night, I lay in our bed, pretending to sleep while my mind raced. 14 years. A marriage I thought was built on love. A daughter I thought would always be my little girl. And it was all a lie. I pulled out my phone under the covers and checked our bank accounts. Where there should have been over $50,000 in savings, there was barely $19,000. Transactions I hadn't made. Withdrawals in small amounts, bit by bit, bleeding me dry. All while I was working myself into an early grave to keep them comfortable. Marissa came into the room, asked if I needed anything. I pretended to be groggy to mumble no. She kissed my forehead and it took everything in me not to recoil from her touch. That night I made a vow. They thought I was broken. They thought I was beaten. They had no idea who they were dealing with. The next morning, I told Marissa I wasn't feeling well and would need to stay home from work for a few days. She acted sympathetic, of course. Overly sweet, even. But I could see it in her eyes. Relief. The sooner I became a burden, the easier it would be to discard me. I spent that day sitting in the living room, arm throbbing in its cast, pretending to be lost in a haze of pain medication. Marissa floated around the house, chatting on the phone, tapping away on her laptop. Occasionally, I caught bits of her conversations, all carefully cheerful, cautious around me. But I wasn't really out of it. I was listening, and I was planning. As soon as she left for the grocery store, I sprang into action. It wasn't easy with a broken arm, but adrenaline is a powerful motivator. I went straight to the family computer in the study, the one Marissa thought I never touched. She wasn't very careful with her passwords. Within minutes, I was combing through our bank accounts, our emails, everything. What I found nearly made me sick. She had been bleeding our savings dry for months, maybe even years. Small, calculated withdrawals. Transfers to accounts I hadn't even known existed. There were emails between her and someone named Brian, her boss from what I could tell, full of thinly veiled suggestions about starting a new chapter and finally being free. As if that wasn't enough, I found drafts of divorce papers already filled out. They accused me of alcoholism, mental instability, and financial irresponsibility. All complete fabrications. I sat there, staring at the screen, my heart pounding. Every late night at work, every weekend shift I pulled to keep them comfortable, it was all for nothing. They had been planning to destroy me. But if they thought I was just going to sit there and let it happen, they were dead wrong. I needed help. Real help. Not just a buddy to vent to over a beer. I grabbed my phone and started making calls. First, I called the bank. I spoke to a manager and discreetly set up alerts on all our joint accounts. Any withdrawal, any transfer, I would know instantly. Then I opened a new personal account at an entirely different bank. One Marissa didn't even know I had access to. Next, I found a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but the most aggressive one I could find online. Someone whose reviews used words like ruthless and piranha. Her name was Rin. Within 20 minutes of speaking to her, I knew I was in good hands. Rin didn't gasp or offer hollow sympathy when I explained what was happening. She just said, "Good. You're ahead of the game. Now let's make sure you stay that way." We discussed the basics. Secure my finances. Gather as much evidence as possible. Play dumb until everything was ready. If Marissa and Emma were building a case against me, I needed to build a case against them twice as strong. That night, I pretended to be groggy and confused again, while Marissa hovered around, asking casual but leading questions about what I remembered from my fall. "Not much," I mumbled. "Just tripped, I guess." She smiled, visibly relaxing. Inside, I was seething. Over the next few days, I ramped up the act. I acted foggy, forgetful. I took my pain meds at half the prescribed dose but pretended they were making me loopy. I stayed home, staring blankly at the TV while Marissa and Emma whispered behind my back. They thought they were winning, that I was spiraling. They had no idea I was recording everything. I bought a set of cheap security cameras and installed them around the house, claiming I was worried about break-ins since I was incapacitated. Marissa nodded, pretending to care. She didn't even question it. One camera went in the living room, another in the kitchen, a third, smaller one hidden in Marissa's home office. I also placed a tiny voice recorder under the couch, legal in our state since it was my house too. Thank you, late-night Reddit rabbit holes. I started gathering footage. Every snide comment Marissa made about me being useless. Every whispered plan between her and Emma about getting everything finalized. Every secret phone call to Brian, giggling and cooing about their bright future. Every betrayal documented. One afternoon, when Marissa thought I was napping, she invited Brian over. I watched from the camera feed on my phone as they sat together on our couch, my couch, drinking my whiskey, laughing, planning. He didn't even bother being discreet. Put his feet up on the coffee table I built with my own hands. They didn't kiss. No overt physical affection. But the intimacy was obvious. I recorded everything. That night, lying beside her in bed, I felt nothing. No anger. No heartbreak. Just cold, clear focus. She wasn't my wife anymore. She was my opponent. Emma? I didn't know what to feel about her. Some nights I still don't. She was my daughter, my little girl. And now, she was conspiring with her mother to tear my life apart for money. I couldn't let myself get emotional about it. Not yet. Not until I had everything ready. Week after week, I kept gathering evidence. Building my case. Bank statements. Screenshots of conversations. Audio recordings of them discussing how pathetic I had become. All the while, I kept playing the part of the broken man. Sometimes, Marissa would sit beside me on the couch, patting my knee and murmuring how proud she was of how well I was coping. I wanted to laugh in her face. Instead, I smiled and thanked her. Let them believe they were safe. Let them believe I was beaten. The more secure they felt, the harder it would hit them when I finally tore their little scheme apart. And I was getting close. Closer every day. By the end of the third week, my broken arm had become the least of my problems. Sure, it ached. Sure, it made everything harder. But the real pain was in every new betrayal I uncovered. It was like peeling back the layers of a rotten onion. Every time I thought I'd reached the worst of it, there was something fouler underneath. One evening, when Marissa went to visit a friend and Emma was back at school, I decided it was time to dive even deeper. Armed with my good hand and a lot of grim determination, I broke into Marissa's home office, the room that used to be our guest bedroom but had slowly transformed into her private lair. The drawers were locked, of course, but not well. It took me less than 5 minutes to find the spare key taped under her pencil tray. Amateur move, Marissa. What I found inside made my stomach drop. There were bank statements from an account I had never seen before. Not one account, actually. 4. Hidden savings, secret investments, all siphoned from our joint finances over the last 5 years. The balances? Nearly $200,000 combined. $200,000 she had stolen while I was working overtime shifts, thinking we were saving for retirement, for Emma's education, for our future. It wasn't just betrayal. It was theft. Calculated, deliberate theft. I took pictures of every document, my hands shaking so badly that some of them came out blurry. Didn't matter. Evidence was evidence. And then, at the bottom of the drawer, I found a thick folder labeled E-College. For a moment, a pang of guilt hit me. Maybe, just maybe, it was genuine college plans for Emma. Maybe there was still some shred of decency left in Marissa. But when I opened it, I found divorce papers. Already filled out. Already signed by her. All that was missing was the filing date. And the accusations listed? Chronic alcohol abuse. Anger management issues. Financial irresponsibility. Me. The man who barely drank, who never laid a hand on anyone, who busted his ass to keep them comfortable. I sat there on the floor for a long time, the papers trembling in my hand. It wasn't just about leaving me. It was about destroying me. Making sure I was too broken, too discredited to fight back. That was their plan. After that, I stopped holding back. If Marissa left her laptop unattended for 5 minutes, I was on it. Emails. Messages. Bank transactions. I took screenshots of everything. She wasn't even careful. Maybe she thought I was too doped up to notice. Maybe she thought she'd already won. The emails between her and Brian were nauseating. They weren't sleeping together, not yet, but it was clearly headed that way. Lots of "I can't wait for us to finally be free" and "he's so pathetic, it won't be long now." Worse were the messages between Marissa and Emma. My daughter. Strategizing. Plotting. Calculating how to squeeze every last dollar out of me before the divorce. Emma had even suggested delaying the filing until I paid her tuition for the next semester. "Better to wait till Dad covers that," she wrote. Then we hit him with everything. Reading those words felt like swallowing glass. I wasn't just losing my wife. I was losing my daughter too. But I forced myself to push the emotions down. There would be time to grieve later. Right now, I needed to finish the job. Following Ren's advice, I started moving money slowly, carefully into my new personal account. A few thousand here, a few thousand there. Not enough to trigger alarms, but enough to build a safety net. I also secured all my important documents. Passport, social security card, birth certificate, financial records. Locked them in a safe deposit box only I had access to. Meanwhile, I kept collecting evidence. I upgraded the cameras. Got better microphones. Installed a simple app on Marissa's laptop that mirrored her emails directly to a hidden folder on a secure server. Every time she sent Brian a love note, I got a copy. Every time she discussed finances with Emma, I had it in black and white. I built a digital fortress of evidence. By week 5, I had everything I needed and more. Recordings of Marissa and Emma talking about draining my accounts. Proof of hidden assets. Plans to frame me as an abusive drunk. Even video footage of Marissa and Brian drinking at my house while I was supposedly at physical therapy. Ron was ecstatic when I showed her. "This is a slam dunk," she said. "They're going to get crushed." Still, she urged patience. "Don't tip your hand too early," she warned. "They think you're beaten. Let them keep thinking that." So I did. I kept pretending. Kept smiling. Kept letting Marissa kiss me goodnight with the same mouth that whispered betrayal behind my back. Then came the final straw. Emma came home for a weekend visit. I overheard them in the kitchen, late at night, whispering while they thought I was asleep. They were worried. Worried that I might wake up, start fighting back. Emma, my daughter, suggested they find a way to push me over the edge. Make me seem unstable. Maybe even get a restraining order to lock me out of my own home. I lay there in the dark, listening to my own child conspire to destroy me. And something inside me snapped. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was done. Done pretending. Done waiting. It was time. I called Ren the next morning. "It's time," I said simply. We set the date. 2 months to the day after my fall. The day they had planned to start their new lives without me would instead be the day I burned their whole fantasy to the ground. I invited Marissa and Emma to a family dinner. Told them I wanted to celebrate my recovery. Told them I was grateful for all their support during my injury. Marissa hesitated, suspicious maybe, but agreed. Emma said she'd come too. After all, it was just another free meal on Dad's dime, right? The stage was set. The evidence was locked and loaded. They thought they were about to win. They had no idea the storm that was coming. The day of the dinner felt almost surreal. I woke up before the sun, barely able to sleep the night before, adrenaline buzzing under my skin. Today was the day everything changed. For them. For me. For good. I spent the morning cleaning the house, moving slowly and deliberately, still playing the role of the injured, broken husband. Marissa floated in and out of the kitchen, glancing at me occasionally as if trying to gauge if I was truly as clueless as I appeared. I gave her nothing. Just tired smiles and distracted nods. I cooked all afternoon, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, Emma's favorite baked macaroni. A cake from scratch, even with one good hand. The smell of roasting meat filled the house, cozy, warm, completely at odds with the war brewing underneath the surface. At 4 o'clock, Emma arrived. She gave me one of those awkward, obligatory hugs, the kind you give to a distant relative at a funeral. I returned it without emotion. Tonight wasn't about anger or heartbreak. Tonight was about the truth. The table was set perfectly, the good dishes, candles, wine glasses gleaming under the lights. Everything looked normal. Like a family gathering. It was almost poetic. Under my chair, hidden carefully, was a folder. Inside it was everything, the bank statements, the emails, the recorded conversations, the photographs. On my phone, tucked into my pocket, was the recorder set to capture every word of what was about to happen. Ran was on standby, waiting for my signal. They thought they were coming to celebrate my recovery. Instead, they were walking straight into their own reckoning. Dinner was uncomfortable from the start. Marissa chattered nervously about work. Emma talked about college, barely making eye contact. I nodded and smiled and listened. I waited. We finished the main course. We had cake. We sipped wine. And then, as the conversation lulled, I set my fork down and cleared my throat. I want to say something, I began, keeping my voice steady. Something important. Marissa stiffened. Emma froze with her fork halfway to her mouth. I've been doing a lot of thinking these past 2 months, I said. About my fall. About everything that's happened since. Marissa jumped in immediately. You don't need to stress about it, Alex, she said, her voice too bright, too fake. It was just an accident. Was it? I interrupted, tilting my head slightly. A beat of silence. I remember more than you think, I said calmly. A lot more. Marissa opened her mouth, but no words came out. Emma's face went pale. I leaned back in my chair, taking my time, savoring the moment. I remember what you said while I was lying there, I continued. I remember every word. Marissa tried to deny it. Sputtered something about confusion, memory loss. I just smiled. Then I pulled out my phone. Pressed play. And the living room filled with the sound of their own voices, low, cruel whispers. Talking about how I was useless, about how they could finally be free. Marissa's hand flew to her mouth. Emma stared at me in horror. When the recording ended, the silence was deafening. I reached under my chair and pulled out the folder. Gently, almost tenderly, I laid the papers on the table. Bank statements showing the hidden accounts. Screenshots of emails between Marissa and Brian. Messages between Marissa and Emma planning how to drain me dry. Photographs of staged liquor bottles. The drafted divorce papers accusing me of being a drunk and unstable. I didn't say a word. I let the evidence speak for itself. Marissa finally broke the silence. Tears welled up in her eyes. Alex, I made a mistake. I got scared. We can fix this. Her voice cracked with what might have been genuine fear, but not remorse. Emma started crying too. I'm sorry, Dad, she sobbed. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Mom made me I cut her off with a small shake of my head. No, I said quietly. You both made your choices. I stood up slowly, the cast on my arm making the movement awkward but deliberate. I loved you, I said. I trusted you. And you treated me like a stepping stone. Like an obstacle to be removed. Marissa tried to reach for my hand. I pulled it away. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice cold and even. You have 30 days to move out of this house. Marissa gasped. You can't. It's our home. No, I said. It's mine. Inherited from my grandmother. Pre-marriage asset. You missed the detail while you were too busy plotting. I turned to Emma. As for you, I said, your college fund? It's gone. You're on your own now. You wanted independence so badly, now you'll have it. Emma burst into fresh sobs. Marissa started screaming, calling me cruel, vindictive, heartless. I just stood there and let her rage wash over me. When she finally ran out of steam, I said the only thing left to say. You did this to yourselves. I grabbed my keys and my folder, texted Run that it was done, and walked out the door. I didn't look back. That was 3 months ago. Since then, everything has changed. The divorce is underway. Marissa moved in with her sister after Brian dumped her. Apparently, his wife, Lauren, wasn't as forgiving as Marissa expected. Turns out Lauren's prenup left Brian with almost nothing after she found out about the affair. Emma took a semester off school. She's working part-time at a coffee shop now, trying to save up. We haven't spoken much. I still love her. I always will. But she's not the little girl I raised anymore. And maybe one day we'll find a way back to each other. But it won't be today. Today, I'm focusing on myself for the first time in years. I've reconnected with old friends. Started seeing a therapist. Even dipped my toes into dating again, cautiously, carefully. Some mornings I wake up angry. Some nights the loneliness cuts deep. But more often than not, I wake up grateful. Grateful to have escaped the people who saw me not as a husband or a father, but as a wallet with legs. They thought breaking me would be easy. They thought I was weak. They thought they could destroy me without consequences. They were wrong. They broke themselves. And I'm still here. Standing. Healing. Living.